After winning their first top flight trophy in the 15-16 season to the FA Cup 2 years ago, Leicester City have now been relegated. It's been an awful season for them, but I want to explore the reasons as to why they've fallen so far. 5,000-1 Premier League winners, now a Championship club. There's a few reasons that I believe are pivotal to Leicester's downfall, so I'm going to get right into them with point number 1. Leicester's recruitment has certainly declined. Back when they won the Premier League trophy, they had some brilliant deals where they got Mahrez and N'Golo Kante in for very cheap. They were pivotal in them winning that Premier League title. But since then, their recruitment has not been great. Not many deals seem to have worked out. They've picked up players like Patson Daka and Samare, both proven themselves in other leagues. But did they suit the style of play? Were they players that the manager wanted? I'm not so sure, because neither of them managed to cement a first team position. And that's not just it. They didn't invest much money either. Players like Fofana, big transfer fee, they didn't really get a replacement in. They got Wout Faes, but he didn't really look very comfortable for most of the season. They just didn't spend the money needed when selling players in order to maintain the kind of, top half finishes in the Premier League. But that leads me on to my second point. And of course, there were eyebrows raised in the summer when captain and dressing room leader Kasper Schmeichel left the club. It was a very strange deal. He was pivotal again to their success, winning the Premier League and everything that came after it. Such a good goalkeeper, one of the better goalkeepers in the division. But they sold him for a very, very low fee. Didn't replace him. They stuck with Danny Ward and Daniel Iverson. 2 goalkeepers, which, no offence, they aren't Premier League quality goalkeepers. And if you're going to be in the Premier League and you don't have Premier League quality goalkeepers, you're always going to struggle. Goalkeeper is such an important position, because if you're not going to save shots that you should be saving for the standard of division that you're playing in, you're always going to be on the back foot. And it's something that for some reason, even though a lot of people seem to point it out, Leicester didn't seem bothered about it. And even when the January window came, they still didn't invest the money to improve their goalkeeping department and just get a solid number 1 in goal. I think this was a massive factor that led to their relegation. Because again, if you're starting with goalkeepers that aren't good enough for the division, you're always going to struggle to get points out of games. You're not going to win many matches, and if the attack's not firing, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose. The third factor for me is that the players just probably weren't too bothered about the fact that they were going to get relegated. And that's not to say that, the players weren't invested in the squad. Of course they were. Players like Maddison, Barnes, Vardy, they've been around for a while. They've been in this squad for large parts of its success, so they are going to want to stay in the division. However, you look at Youri Tielemans. He didn't renew his contract. He was out of contract at the end of the season. He was more than likely, even if he was on a contract, he would leave at the end of the season for a big club because he's a quality player. Maddison and Barnes, 2 other examples of players that, if Leicester were to get relegated, they know that they're not going to be playing Championship football because there will be a host of Premier League clubs already interested in them to snatch them for a low fee. This was kind of evident through a lot of players. I don't think Harvey Barnes so much, but Maddison and Tielemans really didn't hit the heights after the World Cup break that was expected of them. And I think, again, that is a big factor that led to Leicester being relegated. players knowing they're not going to be there next season if the club are relegated. My penultimate point surrounds the manager. Brendan Rodgers had done a very, very good job as Leicester City manager. However, did he outstay his welcome? Now, there were talks in the summer when they weren't getting the investment that he wasn't too happy, but should he have stepped aside then? Because if he's not invested as the manager, how is he going to get the players motivated to be invested in the project? Brendan Rodgers, I do respect the job that he did, but for me, I believe that he should have given up sooner, because there was no reason for him to stay there when he knew the club was going in the wrong direction, and he'd even mentioned it that he wasn't happy with the investment. So he should have left sooner. He should have let someone else in the door so that they can try and help Leicester survive, because Leicester have been a brilliant story. They had the quality to survive if you look at the players on paper, but I believe that he wasn't invested in the project anymore. He was looking for a way out, but he also probably wanted to be sacked so that he could get, a bit of money back from his contract. So Brendan Rodgers is my fourth point, and it leads me nicely on to my final point. And definitely not the biggest factor, but it is my final one, and it is still a big point. Dean Smith. Really? I'm not sure where they were going with that managerial appointment. He brought Aston Villa up by finishing 6th in the league and winning the playoffs when they had the most expensive squad in the league, should have been higher anyway. He then struggled to keep them up. Then he did a bit of a better job in his next season, but ultimately got sacked because they'd lost 5 games in a row. They didn't really have an identity, and they weren't a great team. So Dean Smith didn't do a great job at Villa. Yes, they're very thankful for him coming up, but I know a lot of Villa fans that have said, he's not really a great manager. He should have got us up. That was pretty much a given. Then he goes on to Norwich, when Norwich are in the relegation zone, doesn't do anything with them, they get relegated. So that's his experience of a relegation battle with a team already in the bottom 3. He didn't change anything, and they went down. Then in the Championship, he ended up being sacked, and Norwich are a club that tend to give managers a bit of time. But something was obviously wrong there, because Dean Smith was shown the boot in the Championship with a team that normally comes straight back up. So that leads me on to my point. Why did Leicester go for Dean Smith? Surely there were better managers on the market, and it's one of two things. Either they had faith that Dean Smith could keep them up because Leicester have a better set of players than Norwich did, or they were already thinking of the Championship. Now, I know that doesn't make sense because he didn't do well in the Championship with Norwich anyway, but maybe they thought, we'll back him, we'll put the investment in, we've already got some good players. If we do go down to the Championship, we can get him into this job and he'll bring us back up. Again, I don't know why they'd think that, but it just doesn't really make sense. I can't pick out a reason why they hired Dean Smith. There were definitely other options. There were talks of Graham Potter. Yes, I believe that Potter wanted a bit of a break until the start of, the next season. But there were definitely names out there that have been better in the Premier League. To be honest, I know Jesse Marsch didn't get results at Leeds, but the football that Leeds played under him was pretty attractive. They were pretty good on the attack. They just couldn't defend. I don't think that's down to Jesse Marsch. I just think that's down to Leeds having a poor defence. So I even think Jesse Marsch would have probably been a better appointment. You could have gone with Patrick Vieira. Hasenhüttl would have been a better appointment. Southampton have been a pretty weak squad. They've been one of the weakest in the Premier League for a long time. Yet under Ralph Hasenhüttl, he always managed to keep them up. So my final point has to be about a very unconvincing managerial appointment in Dean Smith. So, those are 5 factors that I believe led to Leicester City's downfall from being a team that won the Premier League in the 15-16 season at 5,000 to 1 against all odds to a Championship side. It's been a difficult season for Leicester fans, and I do have to sort of give my commiserations to you. Out of all the teams in that relegation battle, I wanted you to survive because I think it's an inspirational story. It's brilliant what Leicester managed to do, and I would have liked them to stay up. But unfortunately, Leicester went down. I've given 5 reasons as to why I believe they went down, 5 things that contributed to it. Let me know in the comments, which of my 5 points do you think was the biggest reason for Leicester's downfall? And do you have any other reasons that you believe it didn't work out this season? Let me know if you enjoy this concept of video. I am looking at doing a positive one in my next video, which will be next week, about Brighton and why they were so good this season and why they overachieved in a sense. So let me know if you like this concept, if you'd like to see more of it. From me, you will be getting a lot of YouTube shorts regarding transfers. There's obviously the Champions League final coming up this weekend. Will Man City do the treble and get their first Champions League trophy? It's going to be an interesting game. I will be doing a prediction on that on YouTube shorts. But yeah, shorts for the moment, and I will try and do a weekly video about anything really. So if you've got any suggestions in the comments, make sure to let me know. And also make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any more football content.